Francisco Núñez is actually adjunct in the Polish Center of Mediterranean Archaeology and head of the Department of Levantine Studies in this institution, and he is also co-director of the Lebanese, Spanish, Polish archaeological project in Tyre, together with Professor Maria Eugenia Obe and Dr. Ali Badawi. And the fields of research of the Arpaco are late bronze and Iron Age in the Levant, protohistory and Iron Age in the Mediterranean, and also Phoenician pottery, sequence and chronology of this pottery, and he wrote many articles on this. He had very rich educational experience, MA in archaeology and prehistory from Valencia University, FD in history from Pompeu Fabra University in Barcelona, and he was also 5 semesters in Tübingen University. Research stages of PACO are in general the Directorate of Antiquities of Lebanon in Tyre and Beirut, Semitic Museum in Harvard University, Institute for Biblical Archaeology of the Tübingen University, and also University of Sassari in Sardinia in Italy. He made also postdoc in the Institute of Islamic and Near Eastern Studies, and former weekly chair of history and archaeology in the American University of Beirut. Actually, he's involved in many projects. He is co-director of the survey. He was a co-director of the survey in the hinterland of Tyre, together with Professor Newson, so from American University of Beirut, in him and GG project directed by Professor Tomasz Waliszewski, and Jim project directed by Ida Oganio, maybe Ojanio, excuse me for the pronunciation. And he was participated in excavations in Spain, Cyprus, Syria, Italy, and Lebanon. So, Paco, there Francesco, the floor is yours. Please start your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Papucci. Good morning, everyone. And thank you very much for attending this presentation. As you will see, is more. We are going to make a brief resume of our work in Tyre for the last years, and focusing particularly in our last season of excavations. I'm sure that you will find more questions than answers here, and I'm also convinced that you will be able to answer more questions than we do. And anyway, this is a work in progress. So I will try now to share my screen, if that is possible, because sometimes these things are complicated. Okay, so I think, can you see anything? No, yet. Can you see my presentation?
Now, yes.
All right, so wait a moment here. So you have the first slide on, so everyone can see it. Perfect. Hello?
Yeah, it's probably first slide.
Yeah, okay, great. So the first thing I have to say is that I'm here talking to you on behalf of a team. So on behalf of the co-directors of the excavation, Professor Maria Eugenia Obe from Pompeu Fabra University, Dr. Ali Badawi from the DGA, from the General Directorate of Antiquities in Lebanon, and my colleagues, the colleagues of the last campaign that you can see in this picture, and also from the colleagues that participated in the excavations in previous years. As we will see, we have started in this site in 2014. But before, I would like also to to show my gratitude to the General Directorate of Antiquities in Lebanon, in particular the director, Dr. Sarkis Khoury, for all his support throughout these years, and also to the mayor of Tyre, Mr. Hassan Badouk, who has been always available for every need. He helped us a lot during these years to solve a lot of problems we had in the excavation. So nothing could be done without them. And of course, I also want to thank and to give to thank to all the people, all the workers that participated in the excavations during all these years, to the city of Tyre and to Lebanon, that for many of us is a second home. So without any more delay, I will start the presentation right now. The first, I think I don't need to tell you where Tyre is. So this small picture here to show you. The first thing that we have to say is that Tyre has changed a lot in the last years. You can see clearly here the picture of, in the left, is a aerial photo of the 30s, I think, where you can see that the nucleus of the population was concentrated here in the northern part of the former island. The area of the isthmus was not occupied. That was the road that communicated Beirut with Haifa of the time, with the Al-Bas square here. And you can see how it looks like now nowadays. This is the most recent picture from Google Earth. So you can see how it changed. It changed a lot. And these changes have also influenced a lot to the perception of the city, or the perception of the landscape, or the perception of the former island. You can also see here very clearly how it changed. It's a view of probably the 60s, based on the excavations where already the excavations of Dr. Maurice Shehab, the previous or former director of Antiquities in Lebanon. You can see how the works started in this area, also in this area, in the basilicas. And one of the references for chronological references here is the water tower that give us a post-50s date for the picture. You can see how all this area here now has been gained by the city, the creation of the harbor, and also some square, a big square and the promenade, the northern promenade of the island here, that now is occupied all this area here. So the city, the island has changed a lot during the last years. Focusing on the remains, so the archaeological remains of the city, we have basically 3-4 areas of importance. First of all, we have Al-Bas here. Al-Bas that is well known by the Roman road with the aqueduct, the Byzantine road, and also the circus, the Roman circus, but also by the excavations of the Phoenician cemetery of Al-Bas, a project that we started under the direction of Professor Maria Eugenia Obed in '97, with the participation of a lot of colleagues, and particularly I want to call here the participation as a co-director of Dr. Laura Treguiso. And yeah, this is some view. I'm not going to go into that because that deserves another speech, and it will take too long. The second area of relevance will be the former island itself. In the former island itself, we can find 3 main areas of excavations. The archaeological park of the basilicas, which is here, marked by this red line, where we can find the basilicas, the therms, and all these urban system at the time, the Roman times, Byzantine times. The second area will be also here we have also the location of the most ancient temples or shrines dated in the Persian time, at least in the Persian times, excavated recently by Dr. Leila Badr, former curator of the Museum of the American University of Beirut. The second area will be the Hiram's Tower of Roman times with elaboration of in medieval times and later in modern times. Probably was the end of the aqueduct that brought water from Ras El Ain in the south of Tyre. And finally, the area of our concern, which can be divided into two parts. The area of the old Cathedral of the Crusaders here. You can see the plan, can be clearly seen from this picture of from Google Earth. This is a view from the east, from here more or less. You can see the apsides of the cathedral that whose remains were standing until early 20th century, where parts of the cathedral were recognizable. For example, this is a picture of late 19th century. So you can see how the walls. The problem was that in recent years, during the 20th century, this area was occupied. The settlement expanded itself in that direction and covered these remains, making making things very complicated in that area. The second area, the last area, the area of our concern here today is this one, marked with the number 3, which is the location of the old temple, the now recognized temple, Roman temple, which also is called the Acropolis of Tyre, because it seems that it was one of the highest points of the island at the time. This is another detail of the area. This time, look facing to the south, you can see the remains of the Cathedral of the Crusaders here on the left, and this is the area of the temple. You can see clearly, for example, the walls of the podium of the basilica built in Byzantine times, and these are the remains of the temple, and this is the remains of the procession road of the dromos that we will discuss now. It's interesting to see that during in antiquity, this area was not settled. In this case, what we can see clearly is that, for example, in this picture, what happened? I think I have a problem. Okay, sorry.
Try to start once again.
Yes, no, it's okay. It's only a problem with the iPad, because I'm using an iPad and it's not connected. All right, can you see it now again?
Not yet.
Not yet. All right. Okay, wait a moment.
Now,
you see it?
Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Sorry for the inconvenience. Sometimes I didn't know that could be disconnect. So as you can see here, this is one of these representation of Tyre in early 19th century, I guess, where you can see still the remains of the cathedral here on the left. This aerial picture of the 30s, you can see how this area was not populated at the time. And this is the extension of the settlement that I mentioned before, just in the location of the old cathedral. Another two views from the south, this one from the south, this one from the east. You can see how the ancient location of the ancient cathedral is here, is populated. There are settlement, there are houses, and here too. The area under our concern, was not occupied by houses in the 19th century and in the 20th century. I don't know, we don't know yet if in the 18th century were populated or not. This is something that we have to check in future campaigns. But as you can see here clearly, this is the location of the site. This is the White House. This is where we deposit our stuff. This is, let's say, this is the headquarters of the campaign of the excavation. And you can see clearly here, this White House here is this one here. So in a straight line, you can see how the part of the island of our settlement was not occupied. There were several walls closing spaces in the area, but was not occupied by houses. Here you can see it again. This is the location, the area where the cathedral was. This is before the excavations in that area. The excavations already started. Shehab excavation started in this area in the time of this picture. And this has to be from the 60s because you have the water tower here. So you can see how this area was not occupied. This is how the settlement, the site looked like in 2013. The offering on behalf of the General Directorate of Antiquities to excavate in that area, the purpose was, or still is, the conditioning of this area for a new archaeological park to join the rest of archaeological parks existing already in Tyre. So keeping that in mind, and keeping also that this area was excavated in the 60s, 70s, early 70s, when the Civil War unfortunately started in the mid 70s, works stopped in the area. So we have to see it not an abandonment, but an area that was not worked on during for at least 30 years, with which situation that has consequences also in the condition of the remains and how the situation, the area, on how the strategy to follow in this site. First of all, we have to clear the area of vegetation. It was incredible how fast vegetation grows here. It's incredible. From one year to the next, we have whole trees standing. So it's really, really amazing, and a nightmare as well. And also we had the area, the extension, with a lot of scattered structures, which of whose relation it was complicated to understand. And also we had a lot of elements, architectural elements in all the area. So in order to work, we have to remove them. And since it was impossible to use mechanical means, we have to do it by hand. And it was really, really complicated, I have to say it, and took a lot of time to remove all these huge blocks that were everywhere. Here is a view of the excavation with the sectors of excavation and the years where we work in them. Particularly now, interesting for us is the excavation that of this year is in this area and this area here. One of the first things that proceed is to understand the site was to clean this sounding. Was a deep sounding made by Dr. Shehab at the time, probably in the 70s, early 70s, 60s, 70s, to check the stratigraphy in the area. So we cleaned that section, and we found out that this very location has almost 5,000 years of more or less continuous occupation. So we have levels that started in the early Bronze Age, in the 3rd millennium BC, until yesterday. When I say yesterday, it's really yesterday. So what you can see here is the early Bronze Age levels here on the bottom, a gap that corresponds to the Middle Bronze Age. Both stratas were recognized by Dr. Patricia Bicay in her excavations, which were located to the west of ours. Late Bronze Age levels, Iron Age levels, and here starts the interesting thing, and something that was very, very confusing when we started realizing the nature of the structure we had. These are the plan, a drone view of the interior of the now we know temple. That will be this one here, with a structure that we have inside. And the interesting thing is that we have at the same level, we have late Bronze Age, Iron Age, Roman, Byzantine remains. That you can see it very clearly here. This is this part, the detail of the plan. This is the picture. These are Iron Age walls. This is a terrace of the Iron Age, but this can be late Bronze Age or very early Iron Age, with this pavement here probably connected to it, with a pithos excavated in the floor. This is Roman. And this here is a Byzantine cistern. So as you can see, we have everything at the same level. And how can we explain that it's everything at the same level? The explanation we have found is that when the temple and all the structures connected to it were built in this very point, Romans, because the temple was built in the early Roman period, most probably, shaved and leveled all this area. So what we see is that actually the organization of this space in pre-classical times was through terraces. For example, this is part of the podium. You can see the rear wall of the temple in Opus Cementicum, but this part here is late Bronze Age. This filling here is Iron Age. This is a remains of a terrace that was located here in this area here. Oh, sorry. We have another terrace here of the Iron Age that is cutting some late Bronze Age levels. We have another terrace here. You can see how it goes here, connected to these structures here in the area. And the best example, we have it here in this area here. When we clean, we saw this organization by platforms. You have here one platform here, you have the second platform, a doorway or a stairway, more or less, better said, and a Roman wall extending on top of these structures. Actually, it was through this combination of structures, this stratigraphy, one of the hints that helped us to understand the nature of the site and the location and how the organization of the site was important here as well. We have here this terracing wall was located here. The orientation was like this. That marks a very steep slope down towards the south. And you can see here the flow and how all the strata are going down direction to the sea, to the south, very, very clearly. These structures, we have a reference, chronological reference in the 11th century AD through a bowl of Cypriot bowl that we've found almost in fragmentary condition here in this area. We will join it. And the idea of this high elevation of this area regarding others, we can see it here in this picture. This is the location of the site. And you can see how the slope goes down here. Also, this is the location of the site. And you can see how this is the temple that was excavated by Dr. Leila Badre. So you can see here in between is the Islamic cemetery, but you can see how it's in a lower level. This is, let's say, Persian times, Iron Age, Persian times. Our Persian times here, we have some elements that can be Persian times are higher than that. Even the Roman floors connected or below the structures of the cathedral here are lower than our Roman levels. And even you will see later how the dromos, the processional road, goes down in that direction. You can see the pendant. So focusing on the site, this is an aerial view of the excavation with the processional road here, the sidewalk with the porticoed, a cistern of medieval times, the walls of the temple, a modern wall, post-medieval times, and an arc here, which is also from modern times. This is a drone view of the site, and you can see I prefer to show you how it looks like and what is the reconstruction we have, and we will start from the reconstruction of the site. So you can see all these structures, and this is the idea based on the structures we have recognized and the connection between them, how we identified the site. So it will be, in this area, we have the platform, the wall that marks the platform. You can see how this column here is felt down the slope and is leaning against this wall, the retaining wall. We have the processional road. We have the sidewalk. Here, it seems that they both yield at some point here, the processional and the sidewalk, the porticoed with the columns, some of them found in situ, laying on the floor, but in situ, connected to the bases. A secondary road here with the facade lines. This will be the shrine. We recognize the building we recognize as a shrine. That will be the facade line. A mix like this, with some entrances here and the walls. One interesting thing here is that when this area was built after the planification, and the planification and with idea of building something monumental. We have evidences that happened sometime in the early Roman period. There are some structures and pottery connected to those structures that point in that direction. We are still in the process of studying the pottery and understanding some of the structures we have, but everything points in that direction. We have an early Roman period. It was built in the Roman period, anew. This is when they leveled all the area here connected to the temple. And also they leveled all this area here, as you will see later. Still, it's interesting to see that, for example, this is the wall of the platform of the basilica built in Byzantine times. And with the construction of this basilica, all this area, the temple was completely destroyed. I mean, it was consciously destroyed. They wanted to destroy it. We have nothing. They left nothing standing. So there was a purpose, probably there was a purpose to destroy that temple, that building. Now the procedure I will try to do it more logical in a way. So we will start from the eastern part. We will go through along the road with the porticoed to the entrance, and later we will focus on the temple itself. This is a view from the north, is in this direction here, of the dromos area with the porticodes and the shrine here. Here we have elements of Roman times that were later reused in Byzantine times. So we have still to understand what is the connection between all these two periods to recognize the faces. But again, it seems that everything was built at the same point in early Roman times, and later with some modifications or reparations or small reparations in later periods until Byzantine times. As you can see, all this area is articulated by this wall. We have the permission to dismantle this year in order to open all the space. So it will allow us to first to understand better the layout of the remains, and also the stratigraphy and the chronology, the evolution of this area, because all the layers that are below the wall will give us a precious information about the evolution of this site. Yes. So starting with the shrine, is located in the eastern part, is marked by two roads. This one that goes north-south, and this one that goes east-west, with a pendant that you can see here, probably. There are some modifications that probably are post-Byzantine times, like this basin that was built here at the end of the road, and this industrial installation with some sort of a kiln in this area here. We only have, from this road, we have an entrance here with the threshold in situ, another entrance here with the threshold in situ here, and it's composed by three rooms. The first, the second, and the third one here to the north. This is a view from the west. So you have the first room with the threshold here, the second threshold. This is a wall probably of Byzantine times. The second and the third row here. This is before we excavated this basin that is even post-medieval times, probably is modern, with this industrial installation here in this area, with the road, the facade line here, the second facade line here. Road by road, this is another view from the south, excuse me. And you can see how here probably this well was built probably after Byzantine times, breaking the original road here. And it's connected probably with something that we will show you later, a canalization. Below this road, there was a canalization, there was a sewer. That also is another example of the planification anew of this part of the site. Starting with the northernmost room, we have this Byzantine wall. And it's very interesting because this is the pavement with cobbles, something that it seems is not very common in Lebanon at this time. We have a section here even of different floors. I don't know if you can see them very clearly here with a closing wall here. The second room, looking from the east, you have the threshold here. We didn't find the threshold still here. Probably that was this one here, probably. But the most interesting aspect of this wall was this stele that was reused probably is from Persian times, describing Horus, Isis, breastfeeding Horus. This still is going to be, it has been studied by Dr. Eric Ubel, and he will publish it in the next future. And it's in situ. So it was reused in Roman, Byzantine times, and it was located here because now it's located. Now it was moved to the museum in Tyre, and below this stele, we found only classical period pottery, nothing modern. So at first we thought it could be reused, or even that Shehab put it there, but it seems it's not, because one thing we have realized also that every time Dr. Shehab rebuilt or relocated, he marked it with modern material. So we can identify when is something is original or not, thanks to his work. This is the last one, and this is very interesting because here you can see in this area, this is a sewer that was running in this room and connected here with the main sewer that ran below the road. This is here. At some point, the wall here collapsed, so it was possible to clean it, to clear it, and to see inside, and it's a sewer. What's interesting here, this hole here, or this pit, actually is not a pit. It seems that it was a favisa, where a series of well-organized stele-like or betil-like stones were placed. Some of them you can see here, for example. Unfortunately, I don't have any picture here now of this possible potential betili, but here, for example, you have one of them. And some of them, they are even worked. So they were worked. So they were clearly betili. Unfortunately, as I said, I don't have a picture of them right now. So moving to the west, we can see we go into the processional road and the porticoed road. As I said before, it is marked by this wall of the modern times with the arc. So the organization is here in this section. This is the Roman wall of the temple. This is an arc, probably from the 20th century, early 20th century, 19th century, that is connecting the southern wall of the temple with the southern part of the vestibule of the temple itself. Here we have the sounding where we have reached the virgin soil, the bedrock, with the stele leaning this column here in two pieces broken. One is down the slope, the other one is resting on top of the road. And you can see clearly here how the floor has the slope up to the entrance of the temple, which is located here. Here, the difference, the gap between these two areas was saved by several steps. We will see them later. And here you can see a view of this modern wall from the top. Part of this wall were resting directly on top of the sidewalk in this case. This is, for example, this is part of the porticoed, the base of one of the columns of the porticoed in situ. That will be the line of the houses. This one here. So this will be the sidewalk, the porticoed. This is a view from the west, from the east towards the west of the road. As you can see, with a lot of architectural elements resting on top of on the floor. Very interestingly, this column here, this capital here, probably belonging to the columns that are resting here, probably. we have here the sidewalk, and here you can see some steps to save the difference between the top of the sidewalk with the road. A view of this detail of the Capitol, this cat. I was resting on the floor. This is another view of the let's say the westernmost part of this porticoed, of the wall of the processional road is located here. A view is from here. The arrow is pointing at. So you can see the floor of the road, a sewer canalization for evacuation of the water, of the rainwater, and the top of the wall, of the retaining wall that marked the podium, the podium that on which all these structures were standing and saved created the platform to save the slope going to the south at this point. This is the remains of this modern wall I mentioned before. The sewer, as you can see here clearly, ran towards the west. The slope was towards the west. And we know that at this point, it was covered also by slabs. And we see also that the top of the podium, the retaining wall was also covered with the stones, with slabs. We have only these slabs here in this area here. For the rest are disappeared. So we have, let's say, only the core of this structure of the wall. The wall, you can see it here clearly. This is the negative of the canalization. That is the base, the platform or the pillar on which the column of the temple was standing. This is the area, the point where the podium, this retaining wall joins, let's say, the southernmost wall of the temple, this point here. And you can see clearly how the column, when it fell, one part was on the floor of the road, the other part went down the slope and is now leaning against the remains of the wall. Of course, I mean, this is naked. All these structures are naked also because this area has been the quarry of Tyre and neighboring areas for centuries. So, I mean, many of the structures, all the stones have been taken away and they are now somewhere in some houses somewhere. This is a view from the south. That will be from here. You can see. You can see here the platform, the wall of the platform, the connection with the wall of the temple here, the foundations of the temple, or the facade area of the temple. This is also the line that marks the subterranean chamber we have recognized in this area. We will go to that later. And that will be the platform here on which the columns were standing. The columns are 8 meters tall. So the estimations is like the temple had more or less like probably 15, they were 15 meters tall, probably, joining everything together. The columns and the fronton and everything probably was something around 15 meters tall. So it's a monumental building, let's say. That is the entrance, as you can see. And this is, as I said before, this is the side view of the platform. Naked, completely naked. This is another view of the same with the column, the foundations in this area, the connection between the temple and the podium, or the retaining wall, the pillar for the column, and the entrance. The final point to the entrance to the temple. Also interesting is that in 2014, we recognized in this area here the remains of a stairway. So it seems that there were another platform in this area here. So the platform was making some sort of an L with a projection towards the south, at least in that area here. As you can see, the stairway is completely destroyed. Most of it has been robbed, but still we have the prints of some of the slabs of this stairway. And here, this accumulation of stones is nothing but the whole of the looters that tried to reach the chamber. Well, they didn't try. I mean, they tried and they achieved to reach the chamber. Actually, this chamber, we will see later, is broken from three sides, actually. This is the bottom of the platform. The platform is resting on the virgin soil, on the bedrock, and actually they even cut the bedrock to allocate these big slabs here, blocks that are connected vertically with the platform of the columns at the point. Yeah, the depth of this here is like a bit more of 6 meters regarding the floor, the actual surface, and it's about 1 meter above the sea level now, something like that, more or less. Going to the sidewalk, we see here the sidewalk with the wall, the capital we saw before, and you can see how the difference, the level difference, was saved by these stairs here that are the remains of the bases of the columns. That we see that one is upside down, but is in place. It's in place because we measured the distances between them, and it's regular distances, so it's coherent. This is another view of the sidewalk. This is the line of the porticoed. It's very interesting to see how the road, Northwest Road, and the sidewalk yield at the same level. So there was no step in this part. And that continued in that direction in this road here that went to the east. That here is the facade line. So somewhere here. It's not here in this picture. As you can see, the sidewalk, that's it from the interior, from a view from the west. You see that these are the remains of this probably medieval period structures here down. The modern wall, we can see the column of the porticoed in situ, laying here and used as a fundamentation for the wall. These are remains of Byzantine period, probably, of a house, marking the, as I said, the facade will be here. This is one of the entrances to this building here. And there's another one here in this area here. This wall, I mean, this pathway, we saw that they have several layers, several phases, and also was well planned with a lot of sewers for evacuation of the water, probably going to the main road. You can see here a very nice view of the sewers with a well or maybe a collector. The column in situ, the base of the column in situ with the column resting next to it. And it's also very interesting, this structure here is, it seems it builds a platform. And if you stand here, you are directly in a straight line with the center of the podium of the temple. So we wonder whether this was actually the altar of the temple. The altar was located here. That we will know when we excavate. Once we remove the wall here, we will know. But this is our hypothesis right now in this area. And you can see very clearly also here how are the preparation of the floor to locate all the slabs of the sidewalk. So we go into the facade, to the entrance of the temple. We were looking before here. This is the canalization we saw here before. Another column whose base was here. This is a very interesting feature. It seems that they were located on purpose and probably is some sort of an installation made in the post-Byzantine times after the destruction of the basilica by the tsunami in the 6th century. But anyway, in any case, that will be the line, the facade line in that point. So this column here, most probably the base was here. Measuring the distance between columns is coherent. So it should be somewhere here. It's also very interesting to see how at that point, the sidewalk and the road yield together at the same line, creating an open space in front of the temple. The temple will be the facade of the temple, now disappear. That will be the threshold to the vestibule of the temple. That is the pillar on which this column were standing here. And those are the foundations of the southern side of the hall of the temple, marked by this pillar here, and this will be the remains of the threshold going in that direction here. You can see also here the foundations in this part, foundations that reached also the building soil here at this point. The excavation of this point was very, very complicated because the amount of remains, architectural remains that we couldn't moved or removed by hand, and also the nature of the sediments, because this area here is full of pits, rubber pits, most probably looking for stones, for rocks, to build somewhere else, to reuse somewhere else. But interesting, this part, as I said, is this open space created in this part, just in front of the facade. This is more or less the area where both elements, the sidewalk, the road, and the sidewalk yield, facing the entrance of the temple. And here we have one of the most interesting features of this structure. You can see that will be the pillar on which the columns were standing here. That part is disappeared, it's completely destroyed. But you can see here the level, one step, the remains of another step, and there will be another step here. So there were 3 steps leading to the entrance to the temple. Also very interesting is this feature here. Just in front of the temple, of the entrance, we had this series of blocks with engravings decorated. So it seems that all this part here, just in front of the temple, in the central part of the entrance, probably focus, in the same axis of the entrance of the gate of the temple, is this blocks here with these geometrical motifs. You can see here clearly one step, another step. There will be this one here is lost, and the entrance. It's also very interesting to see that, this is another, these are not in situ. They were displaced with the same, with these or horizontal lines, or straight lines with lozenges, some curved ones, creating like discs. these blocks here are in situ. We don't know if they were relocated in ancient times, but are in situ. I mean, they are not placed in modern times here. And also we have this interesting relief of a palm tree. So this is the standing just in front of the entrance of the temple. You can see, it's interesting to see how the last row of stones, this one here, is made of stones of a reddish color, marking the entrance. We have the hall here, we have the walls, and we have the podium at the end. We have the podium at this side, and we have this here will be the northwest corner of the building. We will go to that later. Interesting is to see that we have remains of the original floor, because we have evidence of two floors here. Of the original one, the first one is here. Is interesting to see how they are at the same level of the Iron Age remains that are next to them. But these Iron Age remains were saved by another step. We will see that later, because at this center, in the center part of this ambient, there were different steps going down, going up towards the podium. And this whitish element here in the center was an installation with a quadrangular element in the center, like a pit. Probably is the negative of a structure that was just in the center of the building. And in ancient times, it was covered by blocks. So all the blocks were covering that area and concentrating there. It's like they wanted to cover that part. One of these blocks is this one here. It's part of a cornice. And that actually we use it now as a table. It's very useful now. And it was impossible to remove from the area because it was heavy. I mean, it was really heavy. So it was a waste of time. So we used it as a table. It's great. This is a view from the west to the east. So that will be, let's say, the negative of the facade. Actually, that was one of the first element that we recognized and led us to the idea of the possibility of a temple here, because we have, these are the pillar on which the columns were standing. This is the modern wall. This part doesn't exist anymore. This is the entrance, the end of the stairway leading to the gate of to the doors of the temple. We have probably an Iron Age wall here, cut by this pit, but we can recognize two phases. The earliest phase, probably of early Roman period here, which is connected with this yellowish stratum, and the second phase here, that is connected with this surface here. That is the foundation of the temple at this point, of the whole of the whole of the temple. This view is to the south. We see the pillar with the two faces, one face here, the second one here. We have the podium. Most probably the blocks, they are massive blocks of the foundation, disappear in ancient times. What we have here is this threshold, which is connected with the first phase. And this is the negative of the second threshold that is connected with this floor here, with the second phase of the temple. And that here will be the line of the floor of the second phase of the temple. Here is a rubber pit. So rovers trying to get into the chamber, they destroy, I mean, they cut the blocks and they create this entrance to the chamber. The chamber actually is here, behind these blocks here. The foundations of the facade were massive, and they reached probably the bedrock. For sure, they reached the bedrock in the southern part, which is here, because we have the evidence of it. And for sure, they reach also in the northern part. Interesting is to see here how they cut the blocks of the foundation. So you have to think of a projection of these blocks towards the north until here. And it's interesting to see how these foundations didn't cover the entire facade. They stop at some point in the center, creating some sort of an L. Here there will be the northern part of it, of these foundations. You see how deep they go. This part will be the location of the pillars of the second column, which is lying on the floor here. This is the second pillar. So we have one pillar here, the second pillar here. How deep they go into the floor, probably resting on top of the bedrock. And this is another view of this area, the connection between the hall, the northern wall of the hall, with the northern wall of the cella of the temple here. You can see here the foundations, deep. All these blocks here were robbed in ancient times. So the connection between this part was robbed. And we have all the evidence here, down here. So going inside the temple, as I mentioned before, we have evidence of the floors of the first phase of the Roman temple here. These blocks here that are leaning or are connected to these Iron Age structures. And you see, how is it possible that are connected? I mean, they are next to each other, easy. Because on this part, in the southern, we could observe on the southern wall of the temple how the line of the floor made a step here, another step here, and a third step here. So this step here, we have the negative of the blocks of the floor in this area, inside the wall, are covering these Iron Age levels. So everything was covered by these blocks, by this floor. Here is a very interesting feature. This is the entrance to a subterranean chamber. That probably the entrance was from the outside the temple and was leading here to this wall here. We will see that later with more detail. Interesting are these elements I mentioned before. This print of lime in the center, just in the center of the temple, with this rectangular hole here, or pit, probably was the location of a device. We don't know. Probably an altar, maybe. And it's very interesting, as I mentioned before, that it was covered on purpose. I mean, all the blocks were covered in this area, like on purpose. The second element is this strange structure here. You can see here that has provided us date for this first phase of the temple. It's the 1st century AD. Thanks to a canalization we have in this area, a tube of a canalization can be dated in the 1st century AD. As you can see, these are cutting early Iron Age levels here and late Bronze Age levels here. I mean, it's very complicated. Going to the chamber, this is the southern wall. These are the blocks of the floor of the first phase of the temple. And underneath, we have this structure. This structure is in situ. These are not. These blocks here are not. Someone who worked with Dr. Shehab at the time mentioned that they put back those stones here, but those here are original. And you can hear the entrance to this chamber or the gallery, and here probably the roofing of this chamber. We wonder whether this is the entrance of the chamber, the subterranean chamber that we have at the entrance of the temple complex. This is something we have to work on in the next campaign this year. So moving forward, because we are more than 1 hour and I don't want to kill you, we move to the podium. This is the podium located in the westernmost part of the building. These are the remains of the Opus Caementicum wall, the southern wall, that connecting with this one here. The extension of this wall is this here. That is the podium, the blocks marking the podium. The podium was created by cutting late Bronze Age and Iron Age levels vertically with blocks, creating a space that was filled with Iron Age pottery. So is all this material here you can find is early Iron Age pottery. So they took all the sediments and they put it here inside the structure. It's also interesting to see how these two are two inscriptions, votive inscriptions. We have found 3 inscriptions in this area. 2 are Hellenistics, 1 is early Roman. So again, another hint for the first phase of the temple. This is a view again of this podium. As I mentioned before, we have the rear wall of the temple. These late Bronze Age, Iron Age levels cut to create a space here for the, sorry, I was pointing to my screen, sorry. You have here the late Bronze Age levels cut to create the podium. This is the rear wall of the temple. Down here, we have early Iron Age, late Bronze Age, early Iron Age levels down here. And this is late Bronze Age. So just to give you an idea of how complicated it is. This is by the way, this is a Byzantine canalization. Again, these are the descriptions. You can see here clearly how the podium in this area, in the northern part of the temple, is destroyed. Dr. Shehab created a passway in this part and he removed everything. So we only have the southern part of it. These are the inscriptions that are going to be, were translated by Dr. Frederic Alpi from the IFPO in Beirut. So he's here, the picture that the day he came to make the molds. Was a very interesting experience because I never saw how the molds were done. It was quite impressive. And also in the center of the altar, we have this device here. This element is a structure that was covered with marbles. Here we have some of the marbles in situ. Going to the west, we have the northwest corner of the temple, which is here. We have, this is the corner. This is the Opus Caementicum wall that connects directly to this one here and closes it here. And it's very interesting because in that point we observe how this Opus Caementicum was covered by limestone walls. sandstone walls, blocks. Something that has been also recognized in this part here, outside the walls. You see here this the coverture of the opus caementicum with the extension of this canalization we saw before. And interesting is that they are resting on top of an Iron Age terrace. This is Iron Age. All this structure here is Iron Age material, yield Iron Age material. So they are reusing a previous structure existing on the point. And this is a terrace very easily because there's no face. I mean, there are walls with only one face. And this is something that repeats itself in several areas. Moving forward, we have the chamber, as I mentioned before, which is located in the southern part of the entrance of the temple, probably connected with this galley, subterranean galley that runs along the southern wall of the temple, the Roman temple. And this is a view from, this is a view from the west. So we can see how here the looters broke into the chamber by destroying the wall. You can see the remains. We can still even see the marks of the peaks. This is the western wall of the chamber. Everything built in massive blocks of limestone and sandstone, combining both them. And this is another looter's pit. If you remember, this is the one I mentioned before, connected to the remains of the stairway that was together with the platform at this point, next to the ark. So this is it. This is the pit. The idea this year is to, if we see that it's safe, we will excavate inside the chamber this year to try to identify the function of it. So I'm finishing. So again, a view of the compound. Interesting is to stress the monumentality of this compound. A monumentality of created on purpose. I mean, there was a part of the city that was built and designed anew, destroying previous layers, previous phases of occupation in the area. A very well planned structure that again was completely destroyed. At least the temple was completely destroyed in Byzantine times. If you see the plan of the temple, one of the things that is remarkable is that it doesn't look like the usual temples that we have, for instance, in Lebanon. For example, the closest example I can think of is the temple in Schim, where it's more rectangular. They don't have this extension of the hall as we have here. And it's clear here with two columns. And on what side? Not four or columns located in the center of the entrance. They are located in the sides. And we know that because if you remember, I showed before a column that had the whole of a pole to adjust this column to the wall. And this is the column here. Columns that are still resting in the nearby, the two columns made of pink granite of Mons Claudianus in Egypt. Interesting is that this structure, the temple, was completely destroyed, but completely destroyed in Byzantine times for the construction of the Byzantine basilica. Remains of the platforms are here. But it's interesting that this area here we have evidence of another monumental building. We don't know if it's a temple. This is something we have to see in the future, but it's probably another monumental temple, temple building. And we have another column connected to it here. So looking for models, the first impression we have is the Iron Age Persian time models of temples in the area. For example, this stele here is a funerary stele found in Burj al Jamali, south from Tyre, where we can see the feature of the hall narrower than the walls, with the entrance and the two columns located on the sides. We have, I don't want to go into the subject of who was worshipped here, because we don't have evidences. The inscriptions that we mentioned before, they don't have they don't name any god. They are votive inscriptions, but they don't name any god. But taking in consideration temples or Tyrian temples represented in coins, we have two main temples. We have one of the one of Astarte with 8 columns, which is impossible to be here. We have two. This one from the first half of the 3rd century AD, with a lot of columns on the sides, a more canonical Roman temple, let's say. We don't have evidence of so many columns. We don't have the space for so many columns here. And we have this other coin of the second half of the 3rd century, where is represented Dido worshipping or making offerings to the temple of Melkart of Tyre. I'm not saying that we have the temple of Melkart. I'm not saying that. I don't want to say that. We cannot affirm. So we don't have the evidence. So we prefer to be cautious and wait for more evidence. But what we can say is that the model that we have is closer to this model, to this temple, with the 2 columns on the sides of the building, of the entrance, than this one here. It's also interesting to see that we have remains of Egyptian gorges that probably are represented here in situ, in the site. We found 2 so far, monumental ones, huge ones. But again, don't take me wrong. I'm not saying, or we are not saying we have here the Temple of Melkart. We have to wait for it. But what I wanted to stress is that this area of the island has been always, or had always a ritual and a religious character. To name, we have, in this area, we have early late Bronze Age tombs in the sector excavated by Dr. Bikai in this area here. We have the Roman temple in blue with the shrine. We have the Byzantine platform. We have the Cathedral of the Crusaders. Actually, Dr. Shehab always thought that the Temple of Melkart was located in the same place of the cathedral. We have an Abbasid mosque here. We have the Mosque of Sharafuddin nearby, and we have the cemetery, the Muslim cemetery here. So this area of the island, the former island, has always had, throughout the ages, has got this character of ritual character or religious character, which is very interesting to research more in the future. So this is what I wanted to show you. This is what the results so far. I was extending myself a little bit too much, I'm afraid. And as you can see, I mean, we have more questions than answers. So hopefully in the next campaigns, the next campaigns, we will solve them. Thank you very much for your attention and your patience. Thank you.
Thank you, Paco, very much for this very interesting lecture. And congratulations